Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin Time. This is the show where all the hard work of figuring out the streaming services and the boxes and the who's got what pays off, and we've watched our shows, and we get to just sit around and talk about them. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian Brushwood, how you feeling?
Pretty good. Feeling pretty good about my chances of eating that steak for kicking your butt in the winter movie draft, specifically about whether or not Boss Baby was going to make all the money in the world compared to the other one, Ghost in the Shell.
I don't remember this bet. Let's turn to the movie draft. So yes, my friends, Smurfs: The Lost Village has not actually done worse than I expected, but it's done 14 million in its opening weekend. So I mean, I paid $7 for it. Honestly, Smurfs is doing about where I projected. I projected it to make more than Chips. It has already almost made the same amount as Chips in its first opening weekend, so it'll get a few follow-ons. It'll probably I feel like it'll finish out between 30 and 40. What hurts me is not what's happening to my own team's movie with Smurfs: The Lost Village. It's that Ghost in the Shell way underperformed. I expected it not to do great, but it did.
Well, and it doesn't hurt you.
31 million.
You luckily don't own it. It only hurts you in terms of...
it only hurts me in this purported stake bet that I have no memory of. It prove it you can't.
Okay.
You totally win that bet. The Boss Baby just crushing Ghost of the Shell.
If you want to argue over the fine print, technically I bet that it would do double... the Boss Baby would do double Ghost of the Shell.
And it's doing triple.
It's doing triple. So maybe you could get me on some wiggle words there.
Right.
I'll tell you what, man. Fate of the Furious. That's going to be your heavy hitter. You're going to sink or swim. Actually, you know what? I think you still have other
I have
emergency shoots.
I have Wonder Woman as well as Atomic Blonde, Captain Underpants, so The Lost Village. So I have bulk to make up for Smurfs. But honestly, Smurfs doing about close to what I projected it as in my lineup. So yeah, Fate of the Furious could sink me if it tanks at the box office.
Yeah, I don't even know that it will sink you because it's going to do at least 100 million, right?
I hope so. Yeah, I absolutely hope. In fact, I hope it does more than that.
It would have to be like a big secret to Hollywood that America only loved Paul Walker, and now that he's not in them, nobody cares. But I somehow don't expect that.
No, I'm not even going to lie. If it does 100 million, I am going to be disappointed and need a lot of overperformance because I need it to do more than that. But I also feel pretty comfortable with it. I think it's going to do okay.
Yeah. Also, after that, we have The Circle coming out, and then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which we overpaid for probably, but I'm still happy with.
That's the first Night Attack movie, isn't it?
Yeah. We're going to sink or swim entirely on Guardians.
Well, because you only have 3 movies?
Yeah. I broke my own rule. We just went for 3 big ones, and that's a good strategy to not end up in last place. It's a terrible strategy to actually win.
You went for 3 big ones or 2 big ones and Girls Trip?
Yes. 2 big ones, and we have money. I want one more movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go big or go home, and you're not going home.
All right, we'll see. Probably am going home.
But we are going to spoil Justified, the end of the season. It's 5/13, isn't it? Not 5/12. Is that right?
I think it is 5/13.
Yeah, The Expanse, episode 10, the second half of the season of Legion, because Brian finally finished. But before that, Brian wanted to talk about OJ Made in America, which is fine that I didn't watch because I watched the actual OJ being made in America the first time around in the 90s. Tim Jarr wrote in and said it's the best thing he's watched in the last 2 years in any format. It says that as someone who almost never watched documentaries, I think I average one about every 5 to 10 years. I felt no interest in this case as I was old enough to remember it, or so I thought. The backdrop he gives to it gave me a whole new understanding, and I was almost completely unaware of the last chapter or what aired as part 5 on ESPN initially. I'm not sure how it's broken up now. So Brian, do you concur with Tim on that?
Yeah. No, the reason you should the first 2 parts of it. One is the rise of O.J. Simpson, and also the telling of the story of the racial tensions in L.A. to give a backdrop to let you understand why the trial became this indictment of the LAPD instead of about O.J. Simpson at all, and all this talk about racism and all that stuff, and how polarized everything got. The second part is the decision coming in, and him going back to regular life after that. But the third part is where all the gold is. It is astonishing to watch him spiral. Like, he's clearly a straight up killer who realizes that he's not ever going to be accepted by white affluent society again. He thought he would be able to go back to the way things were, and it just was not the case. So he does this calculus and figures out, hey man, if 98% of the world just thinks I'm a murderer, because spoiler alert, he's a murderer, then screw it. I'll just surround myself with the 2% who don't care. And so he surrounds himself with these, these thugs, and he plays Godfather, and he increasingly puts edge to his image in the public. It is riveting to listen to the audio of the actual case that brought him down. The kidnapping and the armed robbery and all that stuff. And it is equally astonishing to hear how outsized the punishment is. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. I'm a bit bummed because this movie won the Oscar. They've changed the rules of the Oscars. You are not allowed to have a multi-part documentary enter the documentary category anymore, because the other people who made documentaries felt like, well, it's not fair. They got longer time to tell their story, so of course everyone's gonna love it more. And so they've altered the rules of the Oscars, which really bums me out, because it seems to me like you should be able to tell a story however you want.
On the one hand, it bums me out that it's like, hey, wait a minute, this is totally deserving of an Oscar. It sounds like. I've only seen the first part myself, but I can see where it was going. On the other hand, I mean, what's a movie and what's a series, right? And the Oscars only give Oscars for movies. They don't give Oscars for series, and this is clearly a series. So this should be an Emmy, not an Oscar.
Yeah, I don't know that I could call it a series, though, because a series is broken into 30-minute or 1-hour segments, or you might call it a mini series, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's told in 5 parts spread across 3 blocks. I don't know. Everybody chime in on that. Hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. But it's so good that I thought I was done with it, because the way I came to it was I started to watch the FX People versus O.J. Simpson, the fictionalized version, and I got like 5 minutes into it. I'm like, oh no, wait, there's the documentary, the one that won the Oscar. I'll watch that instead. And I was done. I had my belly full of all the O.J. that I wanted. And then Justin was like, oh no. Now that you really know the story, now go watch the fictionalized version and you'll enjoy it so much more. There are things you will see that you did not see, that you would not have otherwise seen. So I'm starting to get into the because that's now on Netflix as well.
All right, let's move on to Legion, roughly covering episodes 5 through 8, but essentially Brian's impressions on finishing the Legion series. And Bryce and I have also watched all of it as well. How did you feel? You sort of binged right through to the end.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did. And I'm glad that I don't have to remember what happened in what episode, because we're all on the same page here. Tell me if you guys had the same experience I had. At the beginning of the season, what attracted me to it was, and some of this I said on Weird Things, so I'm going to be repeating myself, but at the beginning, what attracted me to it was its floatiness. It was a challenge to really try to figure out what was happening, and that was very attractive. It was stylistically insane and all over the map and jumping all around, and that was a fun challenge. And just around the time that starts to wear on you, where you're like, okay, I'd really like to know for sure what's happening, they do this brilliant thing where David, meets his rational mind. He splits into two versions of himself, and then you're in a classroom, and then they with chalk, they're like, okay, what are the facts? What do we know for sure? And this is me talking to you, David, definitely not talking to everybody at home, walking them with their hands held through all of this to make sure that we all are on the same page and that we know where things are going to be going. I thought that was brilliant. I loved the moments. Again, like their budget is clearly limited, and the action set pieces in any other show would be really, really weak. But stylistically, they do such a great job of covering it up. I loved the silent film motif that they go into. All of it just seemed so in the world. Like David has a hard time seeing the world. The world is confusing to him. And as a result, they keep constantly shifting the way we see the world through David's eyes, which stylistically makes total sense to me. I loved it. There's a brief moment. I really loved the brief moment. Did you guys catch the brief moment where you see Professor X's wheelchair?
Yeah.
Wait, no, when?
Yeah, no, there's a brief moment where he's talking through who did what when, and I guess whoever my father is must have fought this guy or whatever.
Oh, right, in the chalk drawing.
Not in the chalk drawing, but like it actually cuts to, you see the wheelchair with the big X on it that he has in there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest, when I watched the first episode, I loved the style of it and I loved the characters. I wasn't sure I loved the story. It was all over the place and felt like something that was okay. Here we go in another adventure story and a guy who's trying to find himself and runs off. Once we got halfway through and we are in David's brain and you realize that there is a real creature inside of him that is separate from him. This isn't just his imagination. But then they pull the other veil and go, that doesn't mean David isn't crazy. Because who wouldn't be having a creature living inside of you through this whole thing? And I also just like that elegant way that they make a point of explaining how one of them can be two people living in one body. And we're going to go through all the mechanics and talk about how that works. Whereas you're like, hey, that's what's going on with David too. Like, it's two people living in one body. Wow. It's exactly the same thing, right over there. It's so clever and so multifaceted. And Lenny shouldn't work at all. Like, I not absolutely like adore the character, right? But Lenny should be a cheat of like, so they just want to cast a nicer looking actor or actress in this case instead of having the yellow-eyed guy all the time. But somehow they made it work where I'm like, oh no, that's what that creature would do. That creature would want to appear that way because it's going to be able to get its way more often.
Yeah. Aubrey Plaza is nothing short of extraordinary. And like, I hope she gets an Emmy for her performance. She's absolutely wonderful. Beatmaster in the chat points out that don't forget that when he drew the chalk animations on the chalkboard, it was definitely a bald father figure, which I thought was another nice nod to Professor X.
So can I ask you guys what you thought about the last two episodes? Because I was telling you about this earlier, Brian. My the one thing that I super didn't love was that those last two episodes are very much like exposition. We've got to wrap all of these things up, and it felt like very fast. And at that point, we lost all of the sort of abstract storytelling. How did you
loved it. I loved the fact that everything started off so abstract and so confusing, and right at that moment, with that much runway left, they were just like, let's move the plot along. This is what's happening now. And it's like, I adored it. It was incredibly satisfying, especially like I loved the triple jump that the yellow-eyed king did. Wait, what's his name? The something king?
The Dark King?
No.
Night King?
I don't know. Somebody in the chat will tell us.
Shadow King.
Shadow King. Right. I loved seeing him jump from body to body to body that fast. And then for him to end up in Oliver's body, it makes total sense because Oliver is a soft target who's still not 100% recovered, and it just seemed right. And the idea that we're queued up for a season 2, where just straight up, David pretty much has his faculties back, or until some plot device twists it. But the idea of the promise of David having all of his faculties and being up against evil Flight of the Conchords, I'm super excited about that. That sounds so much fun.
What did you think about that, Tom? About the
I felt embarrassed that I needed it and liked it. It's like when you think you could make it all the way to the top of the hill of a tourist attraction, and then someone says, "Hey, you there's escalators right over here," and you're like, "Thank God." I didn't want to have to walk all the way up that hill. I really felt like, there's a lot going on here. I probably should have been paying closer attention, but thank you for giving me that. I needed that right then.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and even the what on some other show I might have criticized as heavy-handed, like these magical goggles let you see what's real and what's not. And it's like, exactly, it was the escalator. I was very much in your camp. I'm like, yes, thank you. Let's simplify, streamline. Just tell me where the bad guy is. Let me watch him get punched in the face. Great. We win. And I'll tell you what, I got frustrated that you realize a third of that entire series run took place in less than a second. Like,
Sure.
because what is it? Episode 5, she shouts "white room" and the bullets start flying, and then we go on this sojourn over in Crazyland, and then eventually we get to a point where we're through their own individual journeys. We have characters trying to figure out, like, okay, we're all frozen in time. Bullets are headed towards. That doesn't work. How do we solve it? And I like the way they visually showed, trying to physically move the bullets, trying to physically move them. All the common sense thing that the viewer would think of, like, well, why don't you just? And it's like they showed that none of those work. And it was I was really engaged to the point where I'm like, man, this is a real pickle. I don't know how they're going to get out of this. And all of that I thought was really, really satisfying.
How familiar are you guys with the Legion comic book series?
Not at all. Not a shred.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because I almost had the idea by the end of it. It was like, I think by a very marginal amount, I think Legion would be better if it wasn't trying to connect to the X-Men universe at all. Like there's the moment in the telephone booth where the two characters are talking, and he's like, "Oh, I know who the bad guy is. It's the Shadow King, and is a real bad dude, and we got to do it." And the girl is like, "Well, what's his deal?" And he goes, "It's a long story. I'll tell you later." And at that point, I was like, "Well, that's a lot of character building you just brushed over." Now I still don't know anything about the Shadow King.
I think I'm okay with that.
I'm very much not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't care. Like, I already know everything I need to know about the Shadow King. Mm-hmm. He's a parasite that infected my favorite character on the show, and he needs to go away. And now we need to kill him. That's all I need to know.
I think that's the kind of thing that only bugs you if you know that there is more story, right?
Yeah.
To me, not knowing anything about the Shadow King, that was okay, now they've given me the name that I could easily apply to him, and B, they've implied that there's more to tell, and I can't wait for that to come up at some point in the future. I'm not thinking, well, I know what it is. It's in the comic. You just brushed past it, because I haven't read that.
Okay. I just felt like that scene in particular would have been more fleshed out.
Yeah.
I would have walked away from the season. Everything else would have been the same, but I would have at least known more about our huge antagonist.
I did love that phone booth scene where Sid, again, that was another scene where they were able to represent the folks at home, where it's like, let me walk you baby step by baby step. She's like, no, I got it. I get it. This is a construct. We're in this plane, blah, 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 the bullets are coming. And he's like, oh, well, I guess you do get it. It's like, let's go. I enjoyed all of that.
All right, let's move on to The Expanse, episode 11, season 2. Lots happens in this episode, but I want to go right to what is my favorite moment, which is Bobby Draper making the run across the joint security agent area between Mars and Earth, putting her hands on her head. And this is why it's so important that they showed how patriotic Bobby Draper is through all of these other episodes, because this is huge.
Yeah.
That she, has decided to betray her country for what she perceives as the greater good, and B, trust Avasarala based on very limited interaction to protect her.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know if it's so much a testament to her trusting Christian, so much as her just having no other options and being so disgusted with what she found out the brass at her team is doing. Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's either that or I mean she's already
they kind of forced her into it too by saying like you're going to be drummed out of the Corps. You're not going to, they took away the one thing she cared about, which is defending her country.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I found it super passionate, and it was very impactful that moment. I also liked I liked how understated. Why am I blanking on our favorite Martian's name? Who flies the Rocinante?
Oh, Alex.
Alex. I like the fact that they kind of understated Alex going a little bit loopy, being by himself for so long. When he comes in, he's like, when he shows up to rescue him, and it's just like, well, we came to rescue you. They're like, we? He's like, you're being rescued.
Yeah, shut up.
But it's I thought, so Bonnie and I disagreed on this because we ended up talking about it. I thought the actor playing Alex did a good job of talking stuff out because it is extraordinarily hard to act by yourself because you need to speak things. Like in a comic book, it's easy to just, add thought bubbles to all this stuff. But I thought he did a good job of kind of talking stuff through the way you would if you just want to hear words in the air and you're alone for weeks at a time or however long it was. Bonnie thought that he didn't do a great job and thought it was really kind of hammy. What about you?
Oh, no. I mean, has Bonnie never talked to her car?
Well, I don't know, to be honest.
Maybe not. I'm just not a judgment question. I'm just wondering because, man, that is me on a long road trip right there. Like, he's talking to the Rossi out loud. Like that's maybe you don't actually say the words out loud, but you definitely talk to your car on a long road trip. And that was what I felt like there is he's a pilot and a pilot has a special relationship with his ship. And so he's talking to the ship.
Well,
right?
and keep in mind,
his way through it.
There is a limited capacity by which the ship kind of listens and talks back.
Yeah, right.
Because when he does the navigation stuff, and I thought that was a, obviously timelines are super compressed. It's not a 4-hour journey to whiplash around 7 Galilean moons and then end up on Ganymede. But again, that's all stuff I'm willing to forgive. Like just adjust the timeline if you want it to be accurate. But I thought that was a good fix to just look like a rock floating around.
Well, and I like the fact that it didn't work perfectly. Like he kind of comes around the moon and sees somebody else playing the same trick.
Yeah, it's that SWAT team, right? Yeah. And then you might ding it a little for him to be explaining to the audience, "Oh, that's right, hiding behind a planet works 2 ways. Look at camera." But man, on balance, I loved it. So that I did find it curious. Bonnie rolled her eyes. At the end, we get the fact that they see the proto being running around out there, and so Amos is just like, "Let's go kill it." And meanwhile, I said out loud the moment that happened, I was like, "Are you insane? It took out 6 Marines and half of a platoon of Martians." And then Bonnie immediately reprimanded me like, "Brian, it's the little girl." And I was just like, "Oh yeah, no, that's definitely going to be the little girl. That's going to be May." Anyway, still all in, still the best sci-fi on television, full stop. Possibly in the last 5 years, I can't think of any sci-fi on television that has been this good since Battlestar.
Yeah. I would be pressed to come up with a counterexample for sure. How did you feel about them splitting up the crew with Naomi and Amos sticking around and James heading off without her?
I was a little bummed about that. I assume there's going to be a reason for it, but after, I don't mind the team splitting up, but it feels so good when they collapse back together to a unit, and I'm ready to continue to see that. And I don't feel like I spent enough time with them acting as a team to be ready for them to split up again. But I assume there's story elements that suggest it needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, even Firefly split up the crew.
There's some great moments though. Like on the great list of things that the Expanse is good at, you might forget to put "it's funny" in there, but it's funny. When they go for a comedy beat, they stick the landing. Like that bit where Amos says like, "Why am I always the one to get shot?" And then the moment Alex shows up, he's like, "Hey, how come you're the one who always gets shot?" I mean, it's charming and honest.
These are the beautiful payoff moments of season 1. Season 1 was hard for me because I love this crew from the book so much, and they didn't know each other yet. And so I was impatient. I was like, come on. Let's get the crew to where they're comfortable with each other. And now we're seeing the payoff of that, where they know each other enough to joke around and have those bits. And I love that. I love that part of it.
Also, I'm really engaged. I'm glad that they're giving just enough attention to keep the proto-molecule hitting Venus just on our radar. Like, we know there's going to be some kind of discovery there. I guess the probe did show what looked like a freaking alien civilization just sitting up happy as can be on I wonder who their king is and whether or not he has a mohawk and a fedora. I'm not looking at your face.
And his queen, Ms. Mao.
Yes, exactly.
On their crystalline thrones. We'll see. All right, let's move on to Justified episode 13, season 5, the season finale of season 5. And we got an email from someone who said, "I've heard you say a few times on the show that many people have told you season 5 of Justified is a great season. I thought everyone knew that season 5 is the worst, particularly due to the ridiculous Ava in prison storyline. The other storylines aren't great either. Ugh, with the crows already. I think you have been led astray. Season 6 rights the ship, but season 2 is the best season by far. Mags Bennett for life." Yes, it was in the glass. On a completely separate subject, he tries to, I think, nudge us towards our next post-Justified library show by talking about Spotless, story of a Frenchman living with his family in London and operating a crime scene cleaning business, which sounds pretty intriguing.
I got to tell you, Tom, this was far and away my favorite episode of the season.
Was it?
Well, insofar as
far and away.
I mean, man, name one other episode that represented the end of this season. name one
not a
other
single episode. You're absolutely right. Well, okay. I'll be honest. It was very satisfying to see Ava get out of prison.
Okay, I dispute that. It was utterly
really?
unsatisfying.
Like I was just ready to wash my hands of that whole thing.
They spent the entire episode with her like making inroads, setting up, calling out, blah blah blah, and then just at a snap, you're like, yeah, anyway, you're out. Also, guy.
But did you want her to start next season in prison?
No, but. Okay, look, if you're gonna get her out, why are you spending 2/3 of the episode building up like something interesting is gonna happen in prison and then just shout, psych?
Guess what? I mean, I feel like maybe what they thought they could pull off, and I don't think they pulled it off, but I think what maybe they were hoping was, we'll make it look like Ava's out of options, that she can't manipulate her way out of this one and she's screwed, and then this is the escape valve, right? It's like, oh, Ava's been saved. I just never felt like she was in that much danger.
Agreed.
I had more confidence in Ava than that. I was like, oh no, I think she's got this figured out somehow. Like when she stood up on the picnic table, right? I was like, oh, she's winning them over. She's making it work, right? So yeah, I didn't feel like she was out of options. I was glad to see that Wynn Duffy got his trailer, his back, so
Yes.
Somewhere to Live. Thought it was odd that we didn't get even a reference to that, but
yeah, I guess it was just implied that he got it back or something.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden he was like, well, I'm in a trailer.
And then it was funny when the attorney came in and was like, well, Raylan, this season's been a mess, but next season we're just gonna go after Boyd. We're gonna keep it simple. We're just gonna go after Boyd.
Well, yeah, and also how unsatisfying was Art waking up? Like he's just walking curmudgeonly, like, anyway, I didn't die. I'm going in retirement. Up yours, Raylan.
I mean, I didn't want him to die, so I was fine with him recovering. I wasn't disappointed about that, but I wanted them to be like, Raylan, you'll upset him. He's in a weak state, and have him like, his blood pressure go up. But no, this whole thing between Art and Raylan just felt like, well, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like, oh, I almost died, so that stuff between us isn't as important anymore. Well, yeah. There was something weird about that scene between him and Raylan. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of that.
Well, and that's just it, is they didn't give us anything. Like there was no jubilation that against all odds he recovered. There was no transformative moment that he finally gets to say something to the father figure that actually mattered to him.
I want to apologize, anything. Yeah.
It was just like, hey, cool story, bro. I mean, that was insane, right?
Raylan, one thing about Raylan is, he always, if he does something wrong, it's for the right reason, right? And that felt like him going, well, I really just need something from you, but I guess you're still recovering from almost dying, so I'll just talk to you later. Like, it felt out of character.
Well, and also, I'm going to use the word joyless, although I don't think that's right. But the straight up murder of Danny Crow, whatever.
Daryl, I think.
No, Daryl. Yeah, Dewey,
Louie.
Yeah. The straight up murder of Daryl was, number one, I didn't detect enough transformation in his sister to cause him. What's that?
Yeah, well, part of the problem was she made such a big deal about how she wasn't going to cooperate. Then she records him anyway. Then she tells him.
Yeah, no, it was real dumb. It was real dumb. And then also, for no reason whatsoever, Raylan shows up just so he can stand idly by and demonstrate a dereliction of duty as a U.S. Marshal and just passively watch the murder of Daryl Crow. Like,
I guess I couldn't stop it.
No, that was bad. That was bad storytelling. Like, even if and by bad storytelling, I don't mean like I don't like the characters, and you could tell me like, oh, the characters would totally do that. That's all fine, but there should be something layered on top of that to make me care, and I did, or make me understand why I did. And so much of this season has just been because reasons, and that's really been frustrating to me.
I actually do care about Wendy. Her story with Kendall and the fact that she was actually the mom and she was caught up in her horrible brothers. I cared enough about her that I did feel some satisfaction when she killed Daryl. But there were so many trappings around it that were wrong that I didn't get to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Although it was cool seeing him blow his nuts off. That was nice.
Yeah, good for you, Wendy. Good for you. Well, that's it for Justified season 5. We will go on to episodes 1 of season 6 next week and continue on with the Expanse. And man, we got all kinds of shows coming. We've got American Gods coming. We got Better Call Saul coming back. Nope, not sure what all we'll be able to fit in here, but we'll talk about it and talk to you about what's coming after the Expanse. And of course, in another 13 weeks, we'll be picking a new show to succeed Justified. Only the third in our ongoing library rewatches.
Maybe we should do an intentionally like short one, something that only had one season. You know, like what if we
sort of change the pace up.
Yeah, or what if like we revisited Firefly, something we've seen or whatever. Just
did you guys ever do Utopia?
I'll rewatch Firefly anytime for any reason. That's a great idea.
We did watch the first season of Utopia. We have not watched the second season of Utopia,
right?
Which we could do. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, man. No, I'm down for all of that. And by the way, before the hate mail comes, yes, we still love Justified. Yes, we're excited going into season 6. It's just that, look, every single show has to have its one absolutely worst season, and we just saw this one.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll spoil you next time.
Mwah!
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.